To the regularly scheduled meeting of the Municipal Land Use Board of the Borough of River Edge for Wednesday, May 11th, 2022. Time now is 7:31 p.m. This meeting of the Municipal Land Use Board of the Borough of River Edge is being held in compliance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act and associated regulations. Notice of this meeting was published in the Bergen Record on January 8th, 2022, posted on the front doors of Borough Hall, posted on the borough's website, and made available for review in the board clerk's office. A copy of the agenda for this meeting was made available for review on the borough's website near the posting of the meeting notice and in the board clerk's office. Please silence all cell phones. Please wait to be recognized by the chairperson during the meeting. And when making a public comment, please state your name, spell your last name, and provide your address for the record. With that, ask you please stand. Pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Eileen, would you call the roll?
All right. Mr. Mayor is excused tonight. Mr. Caslin?
Here.
Ms. Boland?
Here.
Mr. Merman is excused tonight. Mr. Pfeffer?
Here.
Mr. Cray?
Here.
Mr. Arkelian is absent but possibly maybe coming in late. Councilman Canigo is excused tonight. Mr. Gibbons?
Here.
And Mr. Esposito is excused tonight. And also here are myself, Marina Steinley, our board planner, Mr. Behrens, and the board engineer, Mr. Costa.
Okay, thank you. We're going to do a shifting on the agenda this evening. The first item for discussion, we're going to postpone to move that to the end of the agenda. We move up the completeness review. With that, first item will be the completeness review. Applicant is Yeshiva of North Jersey. Property is 666 Kinderkamack Road, Block 616, Lot 9. Application is for the installation of solar panels and 2 carports, requiring both lot and improved lot coverage, height, and possibly other variances.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening, Mr. Barrett.
I would first like to say it is a pleasure being here after over 2 years since I've stood here.
It's a pleasure to see you really real, seeing you on Zoom all those times. So
Not
welcome.
Just an image, right? So as you explained, Mr. Chairman, it's an application to install solar panels on the roofs of the buildings and to erect 2 carports in the rear parking lot. Mr. Behrens will confirm we do not need lot coverage variance. We don't need an improved lot coverage variance also. And we are amending the application, and our representative from the solar company will be presenting the fact that the canopies will now be no more than 15 feet high, which is what is permitted under the ordinance. So that will be conforming.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Barrett. For the record, good evening, Mr. Costa, our borough engineer, is in attendance, and Mr. Eric Kelly.
My apologies.
Ms. Steinley.
Hello, Counselor.
How are you?
I apologize for my tardiness.
One of our.
It's okay. I don't have to explain anything else.
We're just going over the completeness, and
Okay.
prior to this meeting, I reviewed the proofs submitted by the applicant and found them to be sufficient for the board to have jurisdiction tonight.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Behrens?
So the application is essentially to install a roof-mounted solar panel system on top of the existing principal building and install 2 detached solar canopies or carports over existing aisles of parking in the rear of the site. And so having reviewed the application materials, which include a site plan and specifications of the various panel system equipment to be installed, the board can deem the application complete.
Any questions from the board? Okay, with that, I will entertain a motion to deem the application complete.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbons. Second, Mr. Pfeffer?
All right, Mr. Caslin?
Yes.
Ms. Boland?
Yes.
Mr. Pfeffer?
Yes.
Mr. Cray?
Yes.
Mr. Arkelian?
Yes.
And Mr. Gibbons?
Yes.
All right, the motion passes, and just before we move on, I wanted to make an announcement that the Dunkin' Donuts application for it's 915 Kinderkamak LLC, also known as Dunkin' Donuts, for 915 Kinderkamak Road, Block 206, Lot 4, will be carried to the May 25th, 2022 meeting of the Municipal Land Use Board. So if you're here for that application, we won't be hearing it tonight. Okay? Thank you.
And then also just we'll move the memorializations to the end too.
Okay.
In the agenda. Okay. So with that, let's move on to new business. Yeshiva of North Jersey, 666 Kinderkamak Road, Block 616, Lot 9, installation of solar panels and 2 carports. Your name is Mr. Barrett.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman. Thomas J. Barrett for the applicant. I think that the easiest way to begin is to call upon the gentleman from the, Mr. Daly from the solar company, and he can answer most of the technical questions that have been raised both by Mr. Behrens and by Mr. Costa. But he'll give a brief overview, and then we can go into the details.
Okay, very good.
Stephen Daly, D-A-L-Y, 29 The Crescent, Millington, New Jersey.
Okay, could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, thank you.
For the board's benefit, could you provide us with some of your background?
Sure, I work for Geoscape Solar. We've been in business for over 14 years, and I've worked for them for 8 years.
Okay.
I'm a senior commercial solar consultant.
Okay. Do you hold any professional licenses, or are you just a? You're just
I have a CPA, but I don't think that matters.
All right. Very good.
It's April 15th.
So maybe if you could just, again, describe the process. How does one go about deciding to put on solar panels, in this case, the yeshiva?
So the yeshiva has 2 meters. They use approximately 1.1 megawatts of power. They pay our fine friends at PSE&G approximately 15 cents per kilowatt. And we engaged with them right by September of 2019, I think, and went in and did a survey of the roof, actually both roofs of both buildings, and looked at creating designs to cover as much of the annual usage that they have. We came up with a design for both roofs, and also proposed to do carports, because carports would take us from about 60% of the coverage to about 98% of the coverage, which provides a greater level of savings for the yeshiva. The location of the carports, actually what I did initially was reached out to Mr. Behrens and asked if he had any suggestions or recommendations related to carports, because each town has different requirements, and his suggestion was to try and put them in a place that were not visible from the street, and if at all possible, not abutting any of the neighbors' yards. So as it happens, the sunniest and most available place happens to be the middle of the parking lot in the back, and so our design just came out to a point where we're able to cover almost all of the usage. So we defined that application. We found folks to finance the project, and then we started the process of applying for variance, because in almost every circumstance when you're putting in carports, or oftentimes you need variance. So that started April of last year, and we've been in process since then. So.
Will there be a surplus of electricity generated by the?
No. So in commercial solar behind the meter, which means that you're replacing the power that the consumer is using, you have the ability to go and produce as much power as you use over the course of the year. You can't produce more power. And in any circumstance, when you're putting an application, it's called an interconnection application with the utility, you have to submit the detailed plans, the electrical, and information about the production estimates, and you have to be below 100% of the annual usage. So last 12 months usage, we're close. We're all about 97.5%, if the sun shines brightly next year. But we're not allowed to create more power over the course of the year than the yeshiva's using. So that's,
So it all stays on site,
yep.
so to speak. And you heard me during the introduction state that the original proposal was for the carports to be 20 feet high.
Right.
Go ahead.
The standard design in carports and parking lots is a minimum of 14 feet, and that's to allow commercial vehicles and others to go through, and then it goes up from there. The entrance to the yeshiva actually has a bridge, which is 13 foot too, so we can actually bring down the center of the carport, which goes over the cars and comes up to 15 feet. And there's a 12-foot drive, and the space there will be over 14 and a half feet. So I had to explain the scenario with the limitation as it relates to the 13-foot too, and that allowed my carport designer to adjust so that we can stay at 15 foot or below.
Okay. Now, will the solar panels on the roof, will they be visible from Kennecott Road?
So there is one portion, so there's the south building, the larger building with the gym. When you're coming up from the south and looking at the lower roof, you can't see over the parapet. You have a 3-foot parapet wall around, and you can't see any of the roof. Our panels are a 5-degree pitch, so they'll be approximately 7.5 inches off of the roof level. So over the majority of the entire roof, you won't even see the solar panels. And I'm 6'5". When I took the pictures, I couldn't see. If you go to the northern part of the southern building, the larger building, that side you actually do have visibility of the back portion of the white roof, where the yeshiva is actually having the roof replaced. So what they're going to do is raise the parapet wall to block any visibility of the roof and or the solar panels.
And there were various submissions that we made. Perhaps they should be, do we mark them if they're part of the file or
If you've
not?
submitted them previously, we don't have to mark. If you're submitting something new, then we
Correct,
can mark it.
okay. So no, these were all submitted as part of the application, and it included, from Kennecott Road. And to show that, and we now have the testimony of Mr. Daly, that the panels will not be visible except for the one corner, which is going to be addressed by the installation of a more extensive parapet on that portion of the building.
Is that the building marked B1 on this drawing? White roof?
Yes, yes.
It's the northerly.
It's the northern portion of the white roof in the front. So the gym, you can't see. The southern part of the southern roof, you can't see, and you can't see any of the northern building. It's all you can see is the parapet wall. There's no indication or visibility of the white surface.
There's some concerns as to the proposed lighting.
Right.
One more question about the
Sure.
the roof. There's a concern about would that 7.5 inches raise the existing roof level beyond the existing 41.5 feet? So is that going to take it to 42 and change?
There's an exception in the ordinance which allows solar reflectors on the roof, and it doesn't count towards your height.
Doesn't count, okay.
I pointed that out to Mr. Behrens before. And you still have the parapets anyway.
On a similar topic, other than the panels themselves, are there other types of equipment that'll be on the roof in the form of inverters or generators?
The inverters will be on the, I'm trying to think what wall. It'll be on the parapet wall, but the inverters won't be visible from,
They conceal.
yeah.
Could I ask, so you mentioned that the school's, typical consumption is 1.1 megawatts. In terms of megawatts, what is the potential of the system? I know you said it,
It's
produce
1029. It's 1.0, no, it's actually 1.001 megawatts.
Okay.
So we're at 97.5% of the actual usage.
Thanks for that clarification. Um,
Your connection. Questions about the, whether we provided layouts, but I think we have, right?
That was part of the packet that was submitted, the layouts on the roof and all.
Okay,
15 pages, various technical details.
I asked similar to the question I just asked for the roof-mounted equipment. Is there any ground-mounted equipment associated with the carports, or is it all within the array?
it's in the carport. So the inverters are actually installed on the posts 10 feet above the ground.
Will there be any lighting fixtures installed on the carport?
Every other bay, and there are 9 bays, you will have a 75-watt LED light, and I can send you the specs on it. But it's designed to provide enough light, but it goes straight down. So I have the lighting tests and everything that I can send to you.
Well, just, one of the concerns obviously is the visibility of this thing from
Yeah.
surrounding it. So
Yep.
will the bulbs or the fixtures themselves have cutoffs so that you won't be able to see the light source from surrounding development?
I will send you the specs on the light. They're designed to be in a parking garage so that the light comes straight down. But we can adjust the, yeah.
I would leave it up to Rob's.
I mean, basically, you gotta follow the ordinance.
Yeah.
The LEDs, they can be dimmable.
But we don't wanna create,
We don't wanna hand out glasses, sunglasses to the neighbor. That's all.
But we also we want people to feel safe underneath the carport. so.
100%.
I would also see, the color temperature, so it's not a bright white or blue light. I think, usually capped at like 3,500 Kelvin or something like that.
Yeah.
I'll leave it to Rob,
Yeah, that's all.
And
Whatever you require.
I will send you the specs.
Just one other question, if I can.
Sure. Please.
Any charging stations with this? Any electric charging stations?
We can put charging stations. There are incentives in place and available, and so we can have charging stations.
I don't think the electric car is coming. That's the only reason I'm saying.
No, it's not like 35 new models have just been introduced right now. So,
That's all. I mean, yeah, I think that probably makes sense, Chairman, if it does get approved tonight. I think every meeting I've been in lately, everybody's talking about charging stations. So
we're going to run electric to the carports anyway. The charging stations would be under the carports, and we need to have a line so that it would be a simple process to do. The school would love to
And I
do
think
it,
you
so.
got to work with the fire departments because of the, obviously because of the electric, the solar. I think you would have to work with them, how it cuts off, how it disconnects itself.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there are, we meet all of the 2017 fire codes, all the electrical details are submitted to the town for the permits, for the electrical review, as well as to the utility, so, and there are, by code, places to turn off the system, both on the ground and on the roof, so.
Yeah, I'm saying, just so that the fire department is aware of it.
Well, we'll,
Yeah, they just have to make, we'll make an appointment for them to.
to come out and we'll show the
to
system.
Dale, and he can show them.
And then just a curious question. When you said it's going to produce, I think it was 98%, 97%, how do you actually come up with that figure?
So there's something called PV watts, which is,
Well, the only reason I'm saying it, I haven't seen the sun since like 2 days ago. It's been
Right.
cloudy here forever.
and so when I did say earlier, as long as the sun shines, so it does take into account the patterns of weather, which is a specific place. You have weather patterns located. We will have years where you'll have, I think 3 years ago when you had 42 inches of rain or something like that, we were down 12% from a production standpoint. And then you have years where you'll be above, but over the course of time, it regulates, and it's all based on it's based on the weather data loaded into PV watts.
And then maybe just one other simple question and then I'll stop. Obviously, you're going to sell power back to the power company because you're probably not going to have the peak, you'll have a peak usage and then your usage will fall off and it's generating power, but you're not going to have battery storage on site.
No, we're not going to have battery storage, and what we're actually able to do is to create as much power as they use. If we're lucky and we don't have any rain and it's sunny, we may create more power over the course of the year, in which case at the anniversary date, we will ante up and they'll give a credit, but we're not actually allowed when we're creating projects to.
No, you can't become a utility.
Right.
You can't become a power
Right.
company.
Right, but no, we're not storing.
The only reason I'm saying it, people are up in arms in Mississippi because they cut the rebates. So they thought they were going to get a lot more money back.
Yeah.
But in Mississippi, there's going to be probably people going crazy because what they thought they were going to get back, they're not. So whether, I don't know if it's SREX, if it's still SREX.
Well, yeah, I mean, you do have SRECs, this is a TREC program, but those are all defined by statute in the state, so they're, in net metering, New Jersey happens
We don't
to
live
be.
in Mississippi.
No.
Right.
I just expect that, but,
Sorry, Chairman, to go off on a little tangent here.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Okay, where are the canopy foundations going to be located?
The foundations are centered where the parking spots connect face to face, and they're, that's the wrong page, I think they are 27 feet and 10 inches apart. So every 27 feet, 10 inches apart, you'll have a total of 9 foundations for each carport. Just to presuppose or answer a question before it comes, the way that we define how we put in the foundation is we first have geotech borings where we look at and understand what's the soil that's underneath, and based on that, we come up with the engineered design, and then the actual design is reviewed and approved and signed off by a third-party structural engineer.
Okay. Just as far as the foundation is going to be out of the ground, I would imagine they are, right?
No, well, the foundations are really below, and what we'll have above, just to protect both the cars and the, it's just a,
Ground sonotube,
yeah,
concrete.
concrete.
You plan on painting them caution yellow or anything like that?
Just how you can.
I mean, it's up to the board. The only reason I say that, Leonia Swim Club, you'd be surprised how many people hit them.
The other thing you can do is you can put the concrete and then you put yellow plastic over the outside too.
Either way, I just think you should put, again, there's a lot of traffic, there's a lot of
Yep.
movements coming in and out of the school, so it probably is a good idea.
Okay.
No problem.
What was the recommendation? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
That you caution yellow, you paint the, whatever feature, whatever they're gonna protect their columns. They're gonna have columns coming down, obviously holding the canopy. So you don't
And
want the
then
car to
paint
hit
it-
you don't
paint
want the car to
Paint
hit
yellow.
Okay.
the column itself, the steel column or the aluminum
What
column.
we'll probably do is use yellow plastic because it also minimizes the bumps on the cars if they don't park on it. Yeah.
Mr. Daly, based on your testimony about the locations of the foundations,
Mhm.
is it safe to say that you won't be losing any parking spaces?
No, we don't expect to lose any parking spaces.
And are you, I guess, going to answer the site plan questions too? Like, a similar question, will the landscape islands then obviously have to disappear, the ones that are being covered? Are you going to maintain those or?
One of the things about the panels that we're using is they're called bifacial panels, and standard panels have the solar cells on the top, and they have something called a white backing. And so all the sun that comes is blocked by the panel and the white backing. These bifacial panels, which give us a greater production, especially on the white roof, because you get the production on the front as well as on the back, they have areas of glass that the light goes down through. So you are going to get light through. There's space between every panel, 4/10 of an inch. So there is light. It's not going to grow tomato underneath there, but if you have a shade functioning plant, yeah, it could grow under there, a fern maybe.
So, well, I guess I'll jump in if the board doesn't have any questions.
So I was just waiting for Mr. Barrett, just to see if Mr. Barrett, do you have any more questions for?
Yeah, I'm just going actually through Mr. Costa's report. So the question becomes, well, we spoke about the existing plantings, so if those don't survive, then those which favor the shade would be installed.
Just for clarification, just so we know what the site plan is going to look like, it's not necessarily required per se, as far as I can tell. The two immediate concerns are, even though you may be complying with the height, just the best screening or shielding you could do for the neighbors, I would say. And, that is in relation to both the lighting, which it sounds like you have a plan to minimize.
Right.
And also just the visibility of the bulk, which, there are some backyards that are in clear view of that. There's a solid fence, semi-solid fence that essentially surrounds the perimeter. Some of the landscaping that may have served the purpose of screening may be inadequate at this juncture. Is that something you've considered possibly installing or supplementing some of the?
Yeah, the rabbi will address that, especially along the north side, because I know that was an area of concern.
Right, there are a few houses that have a pretty clear shot to that area.
Right, I mean,
A couple of trees.
yeah, that's, the rabbi, we discussed it, so he has a plan.
So I know the public, they'll have a chance to speak, but I guess in terms of relief, maybe we could inform the board, I guess, what's required. So, they're proposing roof-mounted solar panels, which are generally conforming, so, the board doesn't have much, not that they don't have jurisdiction, but it's permitted essentially. So the canopies that are proposed in the rear yard are not taking up parking. Based on the testimony, they're now going to be compliant with respect to the maximum accessory building height. And they appear to also comply with the borough's coverage and setback requirements. So beyond the height requirement, that was originally the canopies were going to be 20 feet, triggered variance relief. It seems as though the application may therefore be conforming, although again, I raised those issues of buffering and screening for the residents.
And how far are the canopies from your estimate?
I'm not exactly sure. So they're in the center portion of from the north. Rabbi, do you have a feel for how far that is?
Rabbi would have to be sworn in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Peter or Kevin? We also have our surveyors here, so they can be sworn in as well. Answer that question. Grab a chair.
Instead of doing this, what if we did something?
Yes, we would put that.
Right, so we want to, no, I know, this is south.
Yes, ma'am.
I guess this would, but.
See?
It wouldn't have been.
Kevin Kirch from Surveying Technologies,
Could you please spell your last name for that?
KIRCH.
And, all right, we can put everyone's names. Is it just the two of you?
Well, I'm going to give testimony, so.
Okay, what's your name?
Peter Kirch,
Okay.
KIRCH. Business address is 43 Spring Street in Ramsey.
Could you please both raise your right hands? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. And could you please provide the board with your education and background?
Been working with them for 25 plus years. High school graduate, some college.
Professional land surveyor in the states of Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. I was originally registered in New Jersey in 1976, where I used to appear in front of this board on behalf of the client Hackensack Water Company back then.
Okay.
So it's been a while since I've been in front of you, but I have been.
Welcome back.
Does the board accept the qualifications for the survey?
So, what's our,
What was the question again from the board, please?
was my question, actually,
Barrett's
was the
question.
distance that the canopies are from the property line, both north and south?
So it's approximately 100 feet from the southerly property line and 160 from the northerly.
is going towards Tenny. I have my geography right here.
160 towards Center Avenue.
Yeah, it's.
Well, center connects both sides.
Oh, right, yeah.
So Tenny's the one that goes the other direction. It looks like that would be the further.
Yes, correct.
If you have no further questions, I'm open to the board for.
Sure.
Okay. Ms. Bowen?
Yes. In addition to the landscaping for the canopy, do you need to take any trees down to allow the sunshine for the rooftop canopies?
No, there are trees on the northern side that will trim back because they're actually overhanging. But other than that, no, there won't be any tree removal. Well, actually removing trees that are currently in the, they're decorative trees. I think they're crabapple in the planting area in the parking lot. So they obviously need to be moved. So that's
So they're being relocated?
correct.
Okay, that's it.
Ms. Bowen, Mr. Gibbons?
You had testified that you can see a little bit from Kinderkamak, but what is the visual impact on people that are on Center, Tenny, and Madison Avenue? Will they be able to see the towers over the parking?
Carports?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, the focus that I had was on the roof and shielding the roof. I have not, or we haven't looked at the visibility of what the carports might look like.
Okay, I would suggest, if there's something that can be done to make sure that that's not, a visual eyesore to the people that are living on those streets. Because they are, especially on the Madison side, I guess they're close enough that could be fairly visible from their backyards.
Okay.
So I'm not exactly sure what the fencing looks like in that section of the property, but if that could be considered as, something to help those residents. that-
We're happy to, take suggestions from Mr. Costa along the way, or Mr. Behrens.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it
was
would,
necessary to be a good.
doesn't look like it would affect too many of the residents, because the back end of it is obviously towards the train tracks and the swim club. But the residents on those sides, however, 6, 8
Whatever they are.
properties,
Right.
looks like it might affect them, so we wouldn't want to
Yeah,
impact
whatever
them.
we need to do.
The other questions I had have been answered, so, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbons. Mr. Eric Kelly?
Good evening. I have a couple questions. So I just want to understand this correctly. The main focus of this installation would be to provide basically the operating power for the school, is that correct?
Correct.
And is there any inherited benefit to the borough at all with this project?
Well, I think it's green. We're helping the environment.
reducing our carbon footprint.
I can send you a report on the environmental impact that the system will have, if you'd like.
So now right now you have tar, correct? And you're going to replace it with, or cover it with these glass panels, correct?
Or in the parking lot?
Yeah.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So I'm curious as to who's going to hear when a hailstorm or a heavy rainstorm comes? Because I see people complaining about the shooting the police shooting range all the way down by Route 4. So what kind of noise is this going to generate if there's a storm, particularly a hailstorm or a heavy rainstorm? Have neighbors.
Yeah, well, no, I understand. They are
Is there
reinforced glass.
Is there any kind of rating on these, or is there any
I
kind
can-
of study that was done on the type of noise that
There
it
are
creates?
studies done that show the panels being shot with ice pellets to make sure they don't break and things like that. But I will have to see if there's anything related to noise created by,
Because my concern would be if I was living there
yeah,
and it was 3 o'clock in the morning and a rainstorm came, it's bad enough the rain hitting the roof of my house.
right.
But now these pellets are banging against glass. Is there any buffer, or is there any kind of absorbent rate on the sound of those glass panels getting pelted with rain or sleet?
I will look into it.
Again, I don't mean to throw you a curveball,
No,
but
it's okay.
if I lived down there, that would be probably be my main concern about.
I guess what I would say is that if it's raining hard enough that you can hear it on your roof, that would probably drown out the potential of 100 or 160 feet away hitting on carports.
But you're guessing. You
I
don't
am.
really know.
I don't know.
So if we could find that out,
Okay.
so I would feel comfortable not having my neighbors wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning because the glass is getting pelted.
Okay.
So I guess that's a question really, I guess, for a sound engineer to tell us what's more decibels. The
How
roof
many more
and your own
decibels it would
windows.
create versus
Right.
what it would create on a normal home that people, sleeping at night? Because that's a pretty barren area there, and with the river and everything else, again, I've heard many people complaining just about the range itself, which is during normal business hours. I would imagine at 3 o'clock in the morning, if it's creating a lot of noise, we'd need to know about that ahead of time.
Mhm.
At least I would. I don't think I have anything else for now.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Mr. Craig?
Just one question, and maybe this had been addressed, but I'm not aware of it. There was a comment in the engineering report about the storm water runoff from the canopy.
Yeah.
Has that been addressed?
Hasn't, but the answer to that is that the panels are 4/10 of an inch separated. So as the rain comes down, the rain actually will just run through. It's not,
So it's permeable.
yeah, it doesn't, it won't run all down to the center because on each side you've got 4/10 of an inch. So the rain itself primarily will just drip down.
Okay,
That makes
so,
sense. Makes sense.
so it's not a canopy
I
that
didn't know
will
if it was
keep
a
you
gutter.
dry if it's raining.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know if it was a gutter system or something. but if
Well,
it was-
there are carports that have finish underneath, and they do have gutter systems, but that's not the case in this scenario.
So this is not a canopy I can get out of the rain under?
If you stand right underneath the panel, you can get out of the rain, but
Can I ask one more simple question? How big are the panels? 2x4 roughly, or?
no, they're about almost 7 feet by 3.5.
7 by 3.5.
Yep, or 6.8 actually by 3.5.
And how many watts does one panel produce?
440.
440. These got a lot more efficient.
It's about 21% efficient rated, and actually that doesn't include the bifacial aspect, but I can't guarantee that yet, so.
I'm sorry, I have one more question.
Sure.
If there was a incident there, and let's say it caught fire, I
Okay?
don't know what's flammable up there and what's not, is there an emergency shut-off?
Yes.
Okay, so the firemen aren't going to go there and get whacked with 1,000 watts?
No, we actually spoke about that. There, on the ground level, there are system shutdowns, there are also system shutdowns on the roof,
Okay.
as well as, I mean, there will be one on the building for the carports and on the carports themselves.
So there's very little danger if an incident were to happen there where a fireman could get hurt as far as electricity is concerned?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And if,
Former fireman, so.
yeah, and what, no, it's important, and the design that we're using as well limits the amount of power on each panel to, I think less than half a watt. I can send you the details on the Solar Edge system for the rooftop.
Marina, do we know if a copy of this plan was sent to the fire department for their review? It usually is, but.
That I'm not sure of. No.
Okay. So I'd like
Say we haven't
you
received
to
any
follow up on that and make sure that they got a copy for review.
I'll call it
If they have
tomorrow.
any questions and so forth.
I actually have a question about that, just in terms of access to the building with apparatus. So just the fire department, just to opine on the width between the proposed array and the rear of the existing building, if there's enough room for apparatus to clear if there's an incident in the building.
Yeah, you might want to develop a turn radius if they have to get in through that fence to make sure they can get up to the back of the building, you know, particularly with the ladder truck. Okay, I apologize for interrupting. Go ahead.
Not at all. So just going back to the drainage theme, is there any change being done to the surface, the ground of underneath the carport after or in the process of constructing the carport? Is any change to the type of surface that's under the?
Well, you have the posts, and beneath the surface, you have cement and rebar, but that's over macadam, so we're not really changing anything to the actual parking lot other than putting in the posts.
Okay.
And most of the work is really done down beneath the surface.
Okay. So you're not repaving except where the posts are going in?
Right, and
Okay.
we will also, run a conduit, so we'll run a channel between the carports and the building, and then we'll have to repave over that after that's done. But
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
I just have one question. So and this is the existing building, there are panels being installed on the roof, part of the project. As part of that plan, is there any design for possibly screening the aesthetic screening along the Kinder Kamak Road side of the building, just so that the HVAC equipment that's up there now, and we're adding solar panels up there, as well as there a way to provide some sort of screening that will make that a little bit less obtrusive to the eye?
the solar panels won't be visible on the majority of the roofs. They'll actually be below the parapet wall.
Okay.
The one place is, as I mentioned before, on the southern building, the northwestern portion, which fronts, we're actually going to raise the parapet wall so that you can't see anything from a solar panel standpoint.
Okay. What about the existing HVAC? Is that?
So you're asking if the parapet can be increased along the frontage?
Correct, just so that
To
visually
shield
we can shield
some of the air
that.
conditioning?
Right.
Yes,
Okay.
it'll be addressed.
Okay.
Do we get into any height issues by raising that?
Good question.
No, that's another exception. You're allowed parapets, and the ordinance provides 10 feet, or, bear with me,
My question, Mr. Castle, would be just to provide a little more clarity or guidance on that, what exactly, we're talking about, just so.
Just in
we
terms of,
understand.
without creating a situation, putting an undue burden on it, if there was a way, 'cause right now, it looks like there's just, the HVAC equipment is just exposed.
I agree, you're looking at.
So if there was a way, and obviously I'm not looking to put an undue burden on the applicant, but if there was, as part of the project, and assuming it's within conforming guidelines, that, there's a way to screen that area in, something to consider.
I think it's a good idea. I think it's something that may have been missed, years ago. And there's probably two ways to do it. One would be increasing the height of the parapet. Another way would be there's some other, forms of panel or fencing that can be installed, might be easier,
Right.
that would achieve a similar,
Yeah, the ordinance permits parapet walls no more than 20% above the height limitations of the chapter. I think the height's 35, is that what's permitted there? So that would be
7 feet.
7 feet.
Is it 35 or 30?
it's C1 zone. 35 is the maximum height.
Residential is 30, okay.
And where are we, do we know how we are now?
We're about 3 now,
That's right.
so it'll be about 4 more feet. Otherwise a
So we're at
variance.
38? Is that the,
I'm sorry.
The parapet
We
is.
don't know how high the solar panels.
no, I know that, but how high, do we know how high the actual roof is? And then added the parapet on top of that?
Well, from the 4 corners, it's 40 feet. Cut the current existing roof.
Okay.
And permitted, so I'm just reading from the ordinance permits 10% above the 20% above the permitted height.
Okay.
So that's 35, 20% of which is 7 feet.
So 41.
And we already have 3, so we could only go up about 4.
Right, or again, the alternative would be screening the equipment with a fence or panel or something decorative.
Around the actual equipment.
The area of the equipment.
Right.
As can be viewed from Kinderkamak.
Yep.
Yeah, well, that's,
That could be a cheaper way of doing it and still
that's, yeah.
accomplish the goals.
That would probably,
Instead of concrete, offensive.
yeah.
Okay.
Full fence.
Just again, for clarification, because at some point we'll have to review are we talking about front fencing, front and side? What has the board feel about?
Well, what would you recommend in terms of,
Okay.
yeah, I'm just, like I said, the idea here is not to be.
I mean, ideally, you would definitely cover the front, and I would suggest at least portions of the side. The rear, you're not so concerned about because it's elevated in the Hackensack River.
Right. That's what I was suggesting.
Certainly
is
the front and
Kinderkamak side.
parts of the side. That seem to be-
I think we have
That would be the
this,
south side, right?
the south building.
The south
Yeah,
building.
it's south side.
Screening around the.
Primarily.
Closest to the post office.
The idea is, I mean, Marina, just that you don't see the equipment from Kinderkamak Road.
Yeah.
So however you achieve that purpose, we
So-
bring Shaquille O'Neal out on the sidewalk, we let him look at it, and then.
Well, I'm-
Yes, you know, you can see
Yeah,
it,
'cause
you can't see it.
that's what I was looking at.
Right, so part of your packet, we have the street view of I assume this is the left building. You can plain to see that the equipment is visible from the street view.
Oh, yeah.
So if we reference that, that's kind of, I believe that's what we're talking about, having that blocked off. We can see it from Google, then I would imagine that's pretty visible.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's the smaller building, whichever number that is.
Yeah, it's the north, yeah.
It might be another
Yes.
building.
I think that's B3,
But it's facing the parking lot. Is that the same building right there?
where you can see the cross,
Or is it?
the,
No, I think it's either, I think it's the south building, Ryan.
Is it both?
south. Whichever it is, whichever it is. But we can clearly see it on here.
We could reuse that otherwise.
So just to clarify, for the record, the applicant agrees to shield the air conditioning equipment.
The existing equipment on the roof,
at-
yes.
Okay.
In some fashion suitable or acceptable to your professionals.
Okay.
Any further questions, or anybody on the board?
Yeah.
Um,
You can see anything on the northerly building?
Mr. Behrens, Mr. Costa, any further questions?
I think you covered it all. The only thing I would say, as far as the site plan, just where these canopies, they end, make sure it's striped, striping, so, because they're in traveled ways.
Yep.
I think Eileen had the same professor I had in college. You build a bridge, the bridge falls down, no partial credit. So you don't want anything to hit them. So if you have to put some.
We don't want anything to hit them.
Right, I'm saying if you have to put safety signs and stuff.
Yeah.
And striping, just to protect them.
My final question would be, not to harp on it, but the lighting under the canopies, I assume they'll be on a timer and they'll shut off at a reasonable hour?
Yeah.
And again, if it needs to be revisited after they've been erected and all, and there's a problem, we'll be happy to take care of
I
it.
think that would be a nice concession, that we have retained some jurisdiction,
Yes.
for 6 months or whatever,
Yeah,
to make
that's
sure it's
fine.
not a nightmare.
You probably want to burn less electricity, right? Wouldn't it be
course.
self-heating? The more lights, the more electric, with defeating the purpose of
That's
the
why we're
solar panels.
using 75 watt LEDs.
Right, obviously.
After that.
Well, security, you probably want some lights on, like I said. You don't want anybody to hit these.
Right.
Any further, Mr. Barrett, before we open to the public?
Did the rabbi want to testify as to landscaping
All right,
around the?
Rabbi?
All right, could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yep.
And could you please state your name, your full name for the record, and provide your business address?
Ephraim Claire, last name is Clair. Business address is 666 Kindercamac Road, River Edge.
All right, thank you.
And Rabbi, your position at the yeshiva
I'm
is?
the executive director.
You're familiar with the project, to say the least.
A little bit, yeah.
You've been, since the inception?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you and I have discussed the landscaping along the northerly property
Yes.
line? And what do you propose to do?
So I spoke to my facility manager today. He recommended white pine. He said they grow quick and thick, and that's what he suggested to screen the property appropriately. I defer to the experts. Whatever is the recommendation, we're more than happy to do.
So again, we'll work with Mr. Behrens in that regard to fill in the gaps. And then we'll take a look too along the southerly property line with folks on Madison.
Okay.
I'm not sure what's there. I haven't paid that much attention to it. I knew the northerly one was an issue. But if we need to do something over there, that's fine too.
Okay.
I'm not, sorry, Ms. Paul.
I would just say deer resistant,
I'm sorry?
whatever, deer resistant, whatever variety you do decide, that it not be something that deer enjoy.
Or the bears.
The Wild West here.
I would just offer, I'm not sure, not being a plant expert per se, what the right species is, but I appreciate, school's willingness to, help out the residents. Again, just for clarity, I want to establish the full, exactly what we're talking about, installation height, just so, again, we're all on the same page. Would you like to make a proposal in terms of the installation height? A typical height might be 6 feet or 7, 8 feet or taller at install height.
Sure.
Whatever's.
I don't have a recommendation to make. I'm happy to follow whatever recommendation is made by, the
And
professional.
would that be supplementing the landscaping on the northerly and southerly sides as deemed to be necessary? How do you want to do it?
Right, yeah, that's what I said. I haven't focused on the southerly side, nor has the rabbi. We focus more on the northerly side, so I'm not even sure what's there, to be honest. But if it needs supplementing, yes.
For a few houses could use some supplementing. So maybe
Perhaps-
we could arrange that as a potential.
Perhaps the facilities manager can meet with Mr. Behrens,
Absolutely.
if that's suitable to you?
We could arrange something that,
Okay.
with our office, I guess.
Rabbi, and maybe just put in the resolution that it's an unlimited budget for the plantings, that's all, and that should solve it. right?
Well, try not to kill you either. That's where.
My board president's calling me.
Any questions from the board?
Oh, I had so much fun tonight.
All right. We'll just open the public.
I'll take a motion to open to public, please.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Pfeffer, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, any abstain? We are now open to the public. If there are any members of the public who wish to be heard this evening on this application, would you kindly step forward? Would you kindly state your name and address for the record, please, and spell
Teresa
your...
Power, 15 Tenney Avenue, BOWER. So I think I'm going to be the most affected because once you go out my 15 Tenney Avenue is right at the parking lot. I have a deck, so I'm wondering from my deck, how much am I going to see that the roof of it, the panels? One of my other questions would be, is it going to change the driving of all the buses coming in? Does that change the way the route is right now works? But a few years ago, the buses all came by my backyard and some of them sat idle. So I was hoping it wouldn't change and go back to the old way. And the point that you brought up about the landscaping. Where I live, there's old debris there from an existing building that used to be in the middle of that parking lot like 15 years ago. I think they just tried to get rid of it and they stacked it up behind my fence. So when you talk about planting, is that going to be, when you talk about the north end, is that by 15 Tenney Avenue and all the way up to the bank? Or is that just by the bank? I don't know when you're talking about the north end.
Well, along the northerly property line, so that would include you.
So it does. So no tree is going to grow on the other side of my chain fence because there's rocks there that are the size of boulders. And they're raised up behind my fence, but none of the other properties. My other neighbor and my other neighbor that's here, they built it up behind mine because when the landscapers come right now and they blow the dust, because that's all it is, I have to wave at them and tell them to knock it down a bit. It's only dust and you're blowing it into my yard. It's rocks and dust, and the rocks are starting to come up more and more as the rain. That chain link fence is very visible. So I do see everything in the parking lot. But if you're going to look at this port right now, you're going to, the trees of all, the leaves are all coming in. So right now it's going to be fine. But what happens between October and, March, April? Well, the leaves just really started coming up this past week. And then I don't see anything. And the trees are great. They block the shade. They give me a lot of shade in the summertime. I love the trees. But there's certain trees I don't like. I don't like pine trees.
So you don't want trees.
Tom, why don't you come up here?
Well, I would think what Ms. Powers is saying, she doesn't want leafy trees, she wants...
No, it's not an issue of the trees. I don't think trees are going to grow when the other...
No, I understand, but the change of seasons, they're going to lose their leaves. So
that too.
Right, so you would like a Christmas tree.
Well,
for want of a better term.
I never thought of the type of tree. I'm just like...
But again, those don't...
I do like the privacy. I would like the privacy.
I understand.
But is there a fundamental problem? You were talking about at the beginning of debris in the back adjacent to your yard that's causing a situation? Is that?
The debris, the landscapers come in and clean it. Yeah, everything goes into my yard. Or my neighbors.
It seems like you're saying that the trees can't be planted there.
No. The trees, I don't mind the trees. The trees can't grow right now because it needs to be cleaned up. Are they not going to plant them behind my fence? Because right now it's only rocks. Will they miss my patch and just do my other neighbors.
Mr.
Well-
You,
Address that?
Yeah.
I think you kind of know, you've been to my property.
I
If
don't
you
know
s-
if it's suitable to grow, that's why I would defer to.
It's not suitable to grow, but I would like something to grow,
We're
is
gonna
what I'm
make it
saying.
grow. We're gonna make it grow. Tom is gonna
You're
go
gonna
out
have to
there.
dig, and then you're gonna have to.
Chairman, and it's up to the board. Tom is gonna go out there and make sure. If- And if he wants backup, I'm there for him.
Our-
He's my muscle.
Our zoning officer and our arborist
We'll
is.
go.
Yeah.
We have powers here. We'll do
I-
it.
You have power
You
here.
show me, tell
We will-
me the
we will address
address.
the issue.
We will be there tomorrow
You can come whenever.
with the rabbi, and if we have to,
15 Teddy Avenue.
we stop at Home Depot on the way, we get shovels and picks. We
I
can do
think
all
it-
that
yeah.
stuff.
But I'd love to see men work with a shovel.
Well, you're not gonna see this one.
You said you're going with your shovel and a pick. I love to
But
see
I-
men with shovels and
We-
To
picks.
that point, I think
trust-
the conditions would have to be remediated to an extent
sure
that
it
plantings, and you guys have generously agreed to provide this, so I
Yeah,
think.
We-
I mean, it'll also
Middle
help with, I don't need to see everyone going into school, so it'll help with a lot of things. But will it change the bus route of the traffic entering?
No.
Should be no change.
No, there's no change.
Not in,
Right.
Okay.
Not planning.
All right, because I didn't like the old one. I
Right,
like the way they
you like the
enter
way it
right
is
now.
now.
Yes. And the lighting issue, that was a very good point.
So if it is an issue, it'll be addressed, okay?
It sounded like it wasn't, but it was a few years ago when they changed the lighting. But it did, it
No,
was
but these
regular.
are,
So
yeah, these are
right.
under the canopy, and they're only
Right.
75 watts.
Okay,
So, it's less than you have at home probably, in one of your lamps.
all right. No, that's fine.
It's time for you to get LEDs.
Will there be an issue in the winter time, because the rain, okay, the snow is going to form on top. I'm assuming it melts, the solar panels will melt the snow. But then the runoff and it freezes, where does it's going to go around all the pillars and then it's up to the snow shovel guys come south. It is,
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna have an impact, right?
It's not
No,
gonna
there's-
change.
yeah.
If anything, there'll be more shade. They'll have to take care of it. That'll be on their property.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see all the pictures you're all seeing, so I'm just hoping that it's not an eyesore.
Right. And again, we don't want it to be, so if, again, whatever we can do to shield it.
I'm more for the solar panels as environmental, but, if it's, just.
Right, you don't want to
my
have a
backyard.
negative impact on you. Understood.
Right,
Tom's gonna be
think
there
it's-
for you. Tom is there to make sure the lines go in.
all right, Tom, I got your picture in my, I
Pressure's
know
high.
what you look like. I think that's a good thing.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barrow.
Thank you.
I like having it back to you. See my name and where I live?
Please.
Jill Peltzman, Peltzman, and I live at 25 Tenney. My property backs up to the playground, so I'm also on the north side, obviously. I guess I want to say, first of all, that as a person who lives on the planet, I really do appreciate the reduction of the carbon footprint, and I think that's a good thing. It all does sound good. I'm curious about the trees, if they're going to be planted all the way on the north side. I don't think that they can be where the playground is.
But along the property line, because there's space between the playground and the property line.
Okay.
And there are some trees there now,
Mhm.
but what the concern is.
There's one tree there, yeah.
Right, there's not
Or
enough.
there's my tree. The tree on my
There's some,
property.
there's some on the yeshiva property,
Yeah,
but they're pretty far spaced out, so they're gonna fill that in.
Okay.
That's the goal.
okay. I think my main concern, which I'm surprised it hasn't been mentioned at all, is that this sounds like an enormous amount of construction I'm curious about the timeline for the construction. I am concerned. I'm all for the end product, like I said, but the noise, the debris, as Teresa mentioned, there's a lot of debris that blows onto my property from the yeshiva. I've actually communicated with the rabbi about it once before. He was very nice. But I do get a lot of garbage, and I pick it up. It happens, the wind blows, but I'm concerned about construction debris blowing onto my property, and most of all, the noise. I work from home full time. It's very difficult. It would be very difficult for me to do my job and earn a living if I had to listen to jackhammers all day. And I'm just wondering how long that's going to go on
Right.
for and what will be done to mitigate that.
Right. So, Mr. Dilly, why don't you tell us the,
Foundations, probably will take about a week to put in, to dig and then to pour the concrete. Foundations are put in first and set, and then afterwards they bring in the actual carports and erect them. The penetration of the, that's gonna
It's going to
be
be
noisy,
earth shattering.
but it's, well, yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. But it will be, the time that it takes to dig it out doesn't take that long, and a lot of it is just putting the rebar and the concrete down. That will take about a week to put in the foundations for the two carports.
And any idea of the timeline so I could schedule my vacation? Get out of town?
I will work closely with you to try and, right now we're looking at probably the foundations hopefully going in the beginning of August, end of June,
Oh, wow.
end of July, beginning of August.
Oh, wow, okay. And that's the first step? Or-
Well, the foundations are the first step. Putting the panels on the roof, honestly, we're laying racks. We're not doing drilling. We're moving panels, but we're putting in solar installations on top of schools while school's in session.
Oh,
So,
wow,
yeah.
okay. So cranes,
Well, you're using lulls to move it because the front of the buildings, because of the hill, is relatively low. So, yeah, we won't need to use cranes, but bringing everything up onto the buildings and then distributing it throughout is done with lulls that go up 2 stories.
okay. And then as for the carports, that is going to continue, I assume, into the fall, or?
No, the carports themselves will be, the foundations take longer than the carports. The carports are essentially just, they're brought in pieces, they're bolted together and put in. It really will be a function of days. Putting the foundation takes a lot more time than actually erecting the carport.
Okay, thank you.
We need to be done before school starts, so.
Yeah,
that's,
and the holidays, sure. I appreciate all of that, and I hope that something can be done to, like I said, to mitigate the noise, there's nothing you can do about, but certainly the construction debris. The wind blows pretty strong in that parking lot, so we end up with like a lot of stuff. Appreciate if everybody involved could be cognizant of that.
Absolutely.
Try to minimize it. And I think that every other question that possibly could be asked has been asked already, so thank you.
Thank you for your statement.
Thank you.
You're good? You sure? Okay. There being no further members of the public on this application, I'll take a motion to close to the public.
Motion to close.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Pfeffer. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstained? Being none, we are now closed to the public. At this time, any further questions from the board?
One more question. The gate off of Tenny, is that locked?
It's locked during non-school hours. The pedestrian gate, though, is always open.
Sorry?
There's 2 gates. There's a vehicle gate. You're talking about on the north side?
Mm-hmm.
There's a vehicle gate and a pedestrian gate.
Mhm.
The vehicle gate is locked and the pedestrian gate is open.
Okay.
That's to allow for.
Because my understanding was from one of the prior approvals that you were going to keep that locked except for emergency vehicles. So that's still the case?
Vehicle gate. Yes. the vehicle gate, correct.
Okay,
Yeah. Pedestrian gate is to allow pedestrians to walk through to the train station.
okay. All right.
With that, I will entertain a motion on the application.
Are we going to assume that there won't be the noise? I did Google, and apparently they're not very noisy, but I don't know that to be a fact. I can
Again-
only go by,
When there are, if there's an issue, we will address the issue as best we can. And, you know, the yeshiva wants to be a good neighbor. Obviously, this benefits them, benefits the world. But again, we don't want to do it to the detriment of the neighbors. So if something has to be done, whatever that something is, we'll do the best we can.
with that answer. Prepared to take a motion on this?
I am. Question on the table?
So, we did hear about the inherited benefit of shrinking the carbon footprint. We heard from some of the neighbors, their concerns, it sounds like they've been addressed. And we expect the yeshiva to continue to be the good neighbors they are. And with that, and with the recommendations from our professionals included, I'm sure there's a wide range that our attorney has already written up.
Yep, I'm just looking at my notes. 1 second.
Okay. So based on that, and based on what our attorney is going to remind what was done, I will make a motion for approval.
Okay, and Mr. Barrett, correct me if I'm wrong, the applicant is amending their application to request a 15-foot height for the carports.
Correct.
The applicant agreed to a 6-month review period from installation of the carports and solar panels for lighting, sound, and landscaping.
Correct.
The HVAC on the roof will be screened to the satisfaction of board professionals with at least 3 sides screened. The applicant will submit a lighting plan and electrical specs for the equipment. The applicant will install deer-resistant plantings and fill-in plantings along the property lines to the satisfaction of board professionals. Applicant will obtain review from the fire department and will comply with fire department recommendations. The applicant will rebuild the parapet to screen the solar panels. I think that
Right
just on,
Southern building,
On the
the
southern.
northwest corner.
okay. I knew it was only one. And the applicant will install caution paint or plastic on the poles of the carports and will stripe the parking spaces. Okay? I think that was everything.
Every motion?
Thank you, sir. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Cray is the second. When you're ready, call the roll.
Okay. Mr. Caslin?
Yes.
Ms. Boland?
Yes.
Mr. Pfeffer?
Yes.
Mr. Cray?
Yes.
Mr. Arkelian?
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons?
Yes.
All right, the motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Thank you, everyone.
Be in touch. Mr. Barrett, maybe when you come up with some ideas for whatever you want to discuss,
We'll meet tomorrow.
in terms of screening lanes.
Okay.
Friday. You do it carefully.
Our next item on the agenda this evening, and we bounced around slightly, and I apologize for that. We do have some more housekeeping type of
I
items.
said I really got here late.
No, we just, well, part of, and I apologize, because in an effort to be somewhat environmentally friendly, I worked
Yes.
out something.
Nice job, as always. Yes.
Thank
you.
That was an easy one.
Nice meeting you.
We'll have a public comment point. We can open the meeting to the public once everyone clears out for 1 second, okay?
Are your grandparents?
It's just at the house.
So is it a specific building issue, or? All right, so for that, you would want to write a letter to, or call the building department. Yeah, because we're not an enforcement agency. If it's not something that's coming before us, you would have to talk to them. So call the building department, 599-6300.
Just for, well, I guess.
He's right there. We might have
We're
Casa
gonna,
right there.
we'll open the meeting to the public and you can put your, Thank you.
Okay, our next item this evening, we do have some memorializations, we have minutes of memorializations to review. The first item is the approval of the minutes from our April 13, 2022 meeting, which were previously circulated. Are there any comments to those minutes on the board?
I did have one comment on the first page under, or maybe it's on the second page now, under memorializations for Hernan Green. The application was not withdrawn, it was just dismissed without prejudice, so we'll revise the minutes to reflect that.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay, with that one modification, may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. May I have a second?
Second?
Ms. Boland, thank you.
Okay, and I'll only call those who are eligible to vote on the minutes. Ms. Boland?
Yes.
Mr. Pfeffer?
Yes.
Mr. Cray?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
All right,
All right,
motion passes.
thank you, everyone.
That was Mr. Arkelian was the motion and Ms. Boland was the second.
Okay. Our next item are memorializations. The first one is Jerry Mayetta, 421 the Fenway, Block 909, Lot 13. This was granted variances for minimum side yard setback. Comments, questions on the draft resolution that was circulated?
We usually have who voted on what on the back?
Oh, that's for ordinance, then that's for a different one. All right.
Am I looking at the wrong one?
Yep.
All right, then I'll bring up the next one.
This one's for Mayetta. if you want to
Mayetta?
look at
I wasn't at it, so
that. Okay.
I didn't attend that meeting. But I just noticed that.
Comments, questions? All right, there being none, I'll entertain a motion to approve, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Arkelian. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Boland.
All right. For the memorialization of the Mayetta resolution, I'll only call those who are eligible to vote. Ms. Boland?
Yes.
Mr. Pfeffer?
Yes.
Mr. Cray?
Yes.
Mr. Arkelian?
Yes.
All right, the motion passes.
Okay, thank you. The next item for memorialization is Nilofer.
Yeah, you made me say this all meeting. You weren't here, and I'm like, go ahead.
Dulapoglu?
That was close enough.
I hope I didn't mispronounce that, but I apologize if I did. 257 Wayne Avenue, Block 907, Lot 22. This is granting a variance for maximum improved lot coverage. Any comments, questions on the draft resolution circulated? Okay, there being none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
And I'll do that, too.
Thank you, Mr. Arkelian.
Second?
Thank you, Ms. Boland.
Okay,
We
on
have
the,
a team tonight.
There's only a handful of us here.
for this memorialization, I'll only call those who are eligible to vote. Ms. Boland?
Yes.
Mr. Pfeffer?
Yes.
Mr. Arkelian?
Yes.
All right, the motion passes.
Okay, thank you. All right. Our next item is the resolution recommending adoption of ordinance 22-9, amending Chapter 416 zoning of the River Edge Borough Code.
Oh, first
Ms.
we'll
Steinle?
have to do, just as the consistency review, I can explain. So this ordinance was introduced by the Borough Council on April 25th. It incorporates all of our previous recommendations for an earlier version of this same electric vehicle ordinance. They incorporated all of our changes and then just reintroduced it under a different number. So we'll have to take a vote on whether this new ordinance, ordinance 22-9, is consistent with the master plan, and the phrase is not inconsistent with the master plan. So we can take that vote, and then I prepared a resolution in anticipation, and we can make any changes or additional recommendations if you'd like.
Okay. So,
And as discussed before, this ordinance mirrors the state's model EV ordinance, and there's only limited sections that the borough's able to amend. And we had a pretty comprehensive discussion previously, but we can always make additional recommendations if you think we missed something.
So is the motion to approve the ordinance as not inconsistent with the master plan?
correct.
Okay. So moved.
Just for fun, can I understand the difference between consistent and not inconsistent?
It's actually harder to make the determination that something is consistent. If an ordinance is silent on something, you could say it's not inconsistent, but alternatively, you would have to make the proofs that the ordinance.
Each thing.
Right. So in this case, I would offer that, I think our 2020 reexamination report talks about compliance with EV parking requirements, or to start thinking about it. And certainly, this is based on the recent state legislation. We don't have a choice, frankly, but we are able to modify the model ordinance and create reasonable standards, which is what this ordinance does, to customize it for River Edge. And so, based on that, I think the board can determine that it's not inconsistent. Good question.
Okay.
It's what, 15%?
I think we have a motion from Mr. Pfeffer.
So moved.
We'll take a second.
Second?
Second from Ms. Boland. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Mr. Caslin,
Yes.
Ms. Boland,
Yes.
Mr. Pfeffer,
Yes.
Mr. Cray,
Yes.
and Mr. Gibbons.
Yes.
Oh, and did I say Mr.
Mr.
Kelly?
R. Kelly.
Okay, no, Mr.
Last but not least.
There's so many lines. Okay. And then we can do a vote on the resolution.
Okay. All right, so we'll need another motion for the resolution.
The only comment I did put in the resolution was that there could be a reference to the specific section of the zoning chapter where this new part of the ordinance will go. I proposed chapter 416-34.3, or any other appropriate section that the Borough Council would approve. So,
Within the zoning ordinance.
yes, within the zoning chapter.
All right, with that modification, to entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Second?
Take Mr. Pfeffer as a first and Mr. Cray as a second, please.
All right, Mr. Caslin,
Yes.
Ms. Boland,
Yes.
Mr. Pfeffer,
Yes.
Mr. Cray,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
and Mr. Gibbons.
Yes.
All right, the motion passes.
All right. I believe that is it for our memorializations and resolutions. All right, this time, I'll entertain a motion to open the meeting to the public.
So moved?
Second.
Take Mr. Kelly, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstained? All right. Being done, we're now open to the public. Being served, if you kindly step to the microphone, please state your name and address for the record, spell your last name.
Raymond Stitz, 210 Mohawk Drive, River Edge. Good evening.
Good evening.
I don't know whether this is in your avenue to look into, or I have the engineer here, so maybe he can take it. I don't know. On Zabriskie Place, around address 206 or 222, there's a jump in the numbers. Well, it's a new construction being built, and they're going against the dirt wall, or the dirt wall that's coming down from Lakeview, and they've cut into the wall. And it's sort of like up by where Dunkin' Donuts is, that incline of dirt. And they've cut back on trees, exposing the roots. And they've sheeted the house and they put, and I don't see anything where they're putting a retaining wall. And that's just the signs of danger, because eventually with all the rain, that wall is just gonna come down.
Okay.
Now, is that in your purview?
That's not within our jurisdiction, that's an enforcement action,
The
but
good news is, I'm here, and we'll be there tomorrow.
Costa is-
20 What do you think it is, 206, or?
It's right next door to 206. It's the only
It's the only
house being developed right now on Zabriskie.
Zabriskie.
More to come.
We'll be there tomorrow.
Because it just looks like this is a bad thing that's going to happen. Especially, you would think they would have put the wall up already, because how they're going to get the equipment back there to put a wall up. And okay.
nope, Mr. Costa is probably the best person to speak with on that, on
Okay.
those issues. We don't handle the building department enforcement issues.
And there was on Lakeview, there's the problem on, the person on Lakeview is doing property renovation. It came before the board. I was here that night. And you suspended it with prejudice or something like that.
Yep.
Did they ever come back to the board?
That was for the
For the-
grant
for the-
application, and I believe that the borough engineer was taking action on that.
Okay, because I could just see them dragging it out to the summertime in time for barbecues, and the poor resident, on Lakeview is having this problem. So they're all working on it, right?
Right now, to be honest with you, it's in court right now, so I don't think we could probably.
Yeah, and in the meantime,
That's great.
the other person is suffering.
Well, the only right now, we've issued summonses, violations, between the
And-
soil moving ordinance, between the building, they hired, it's a very long story, but I don't think it should be discussed in this
Yeah.
venue, because again, it's in court at this
Okay.
point.
Yep, the borough is taking the action, and we'll have to wait for the.
And lastly, when you talk about the retaining well, that's what I call it, where the residents have to dig a hole, and are you taking into account in the Mohawk Valley and that area, the old swamp area, as we call it, where you dig a hole and it's going to fill with water eventually, just permeating up from the groundwater. Now, I'm just concerned because you can't just say, oh, they put this retaining well in, they're good to go. Because they're going to be getting water that's groundwater and has nothing to do with what's coming in from the gutters and everything. So, am I making
There's more
sense?
seepage pits in this town in the last 5 to 10 years than you know what to do with. Whether or not it's working or helping, some people say yes, other people say no. But you can't just make them build larger houses and do nothing. So it's really the only thing. And then the borough is, right now, we're working on plans to correct the situation at Voorhees.
Right.
Probably going to go to a public meeting very shortly. So the borough is going to throw some serious dollars at that to try
Okay.
to correct all of that.
Because, I always hear, well, they're going to put it, that doesn't solve the problem. Maybe in other areas of River Edge, it's not a problem with groundwater. But down there, there's always a problem with groundwater. But I've said my piece.
Okay.
I won't drag it on any longer.
But
Thank you very much.
thank you. And like I said, first thing tomorrow morning, I just sent a text message.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, please come up. Could you
Yeah.
state your name?
My name is Antoinette Koffler, K-O-F as in food, L-E-R. I reside at 42 Tenney Avenue in River Edge.
Okay. Good evening.
I have a similar issue Mr. Costa, I believe, has seen, let me explain, it's very similar. There's no retaining wall. The north side of my rear yard has a cedar fence between myself and the back of the townhouses. There's nothing holding back the soil, and there's no drainage. So little by little, there's no soil to hold the trees. So I'm getting everything pushing on my cedar fence, as well as the soil in my backyard. I had to replace, I have pavers in front of my shed. And I had to have a contractor do it twice. In fact, when he took out the pavers, he stuck a long pole in the soil, and it went right down. Very, very soft.
The only thing, this isn't the venue.
I know, that's why I'm looking at
The
you.
good news is that you got me again.
I know.
The
And
bad
you
news
think,
is
and
this isn't the-
Artie
this isn't the-
DeRosa cannot
Artie
just.
came in, but I thought that situation was
No,
solved.
Mr. No.
Okay, let me suggest this. As Mr. Costa correctly points out, we're not the correct.
I know
forum
you
to
are.
bring it to,
I
so-
didn't know who to turn to.
No, we appreciate that. So,
I really
so
didn't
what
know.
we're going to suggest
I
to you
was
is,
going to go to the mayor and council, but I figured I'm here for the yeshiva, I might as well address my issue. But Mr. Costa has to take, please, an in-person, because
I'll come
I've
in.
written letters, I've
I
done
know you have. We
everything.
know each other.
No, but not even to you. I've been very polite. I've written to the management company of the townhouses. They just literally blow me off.
Rob, which townhouses is she talking about?
Right here.
Jordan Drive.
Meadowbrook?
Jordan Drive.
Jordan.
Yeah. So maybe
Look, this has
Mr.
been
Costa,
ongoing- This has been ongoing, but I thought the wall is fixed between you and
No.
the neighbor.
let
I
me
even
suggest
had-
this. We're just about done
I know.
with our meeting, so let us finish and conclude our meeting, and you can
I'll
have a
stop
conversation with
tomorrow. I'll stop
Mr.
at my
I'll be home. I'm having work done.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for coming in.
Thank you. I
I have a few shorts
appreciate
right
it.
now.
I have
You
this
want some
mask.
brisket? I'll have
My
some of
daughter
those
got
brisket.
COVID again with my grandchildren, so it's
boy.
really running rampant again.
Hope she feels better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope she feels better.
So anytime you want to
Okay,
stop by.
there be, anybody else in the public wishing to be heard this evening?
I have contracted
I
company.
guess not.
There's nothing.
Okay, with
wrong
that, take a motion to close.
Wait, I have one more thing, sorry.
Let's motion to close to the public.
Oh, to the public,
To the
oh,
public,
okay.
Yeah, take a motion to close to the public, please.
So moved.
Mr. Iacobelli?
Second.
Mr. Gibbons, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstained? There being none, we're now closed to the public.
Okay.
Ms. Steinle?
And now I had one more discussion item. So I circulated a memorandum regarding proposed zoning updates. We had discussed at several work session meetings. I've been speaking with Tom Behrens about what are our next steps and to make it the most convenient and efficient. What is proposed is that we hold a public hearing on an amendment to the 2020 Master Plan Reexamination Report. It'll be just a short report that highlights all the proposed changes and recommendations that the board's making. So then we can prepare one comprehensive zoning ordinance that will change the items that need to be fixed. And then this will simplify the process, so then we're not doing just things in chunks. Everything just happens at once. The public comes to our meeting once, the public goes to the borough council meeting once, and everything gets addressed then.
So we would make that recommendation, we put all that down on paper, and then it goes to the council to accept it or not, and accept that ordinance,
Yes.
or make changes, or however they see fit.
First, we're proposing at our next public meeting on the 25th to hold a public hearing on the report that Tom is preparing. We have to submit notice to the newspaper to let everyone know that we're going to hold the hearing, and then there'll be a discussion and a ability for members of the to comment as well. I don't know if, Tom, you wanted to touch
Right,
on
so,
it?
I mean, the purpose of the report is to facilitate the ordinance modifications that have been discussed, and without that, you would have to notice like every house in town. It'd be a huge thing. So basically, this kind of, I don't want to say it circumvents it, but it facilitates it. So there will be a bit of a ping pong effect where the board makes its recommendations in terms of ordinance amendments. That then goes to the council for consideration. It'll come back, perhaps a revised version of the ordinance will come back to the board for a master plan consistency review like we just had for the other ordinance. Then it goes back to the council for final adoption and becomes law. And it gets implemented.
But we'll prepare the draft ordinance to send to the council. They look at it. If they want to make any changes they'd like, they can introduce whatever version they want, and then we'll review it for consistency with the updated master plan re-exam.
So this would be for the 25th?
Yes.
So don't we already have Dunkin' Donuts on
that
it?
night.
It's a pretty significant application. I don't know if we want to,
Duncan just got carried to the 25th. So I would suggest the re-examination report, I don't want to dismiss it as merely a formality, but it'll be in the form of generalizations of the board recommends reviewing this ordinance item. It won't be the exact ordinance language to be reviewed that night, is my understanding. So
So we're really.
it's up to the board. I mean, if you want
We're approving the
to.
process.
what kind of timeframe do you anticipate that?
It's a couple pager. It's fairly straightforward. I mean, like 15 minutes.
It's really a procedural
Yeah,
change.
we're-
You're
It's
right.
not a-
This is not
it's not a-
actually the
It's not a
ordinance.
substance, it's not a substance,
right.
it's a procedural change, right?
Right. Well, there's the report, the reexamination report, and then there's the ordinance. We're talking about the reexamination report, which again is really a formality and just
I mean,
spells out
we're
the changes. to
effectively, we're approving the process. We're not writing the ordinance.
Correct.
And we're just
at that
including
stage.
all of the topics that we previously discussed as wanting to change in the master plan reexamination, so then we have the ability to then make those changes. Because right
Okay.
now, the master plan reexamination is very limited on what the recommendations are. So this is just going to expand upon them based on our previous discussions.
And we will be giving them what we feel should the changes be.
At this point,
Not,
it'll,
we'd like to change the lot coverage this is our recommendation for that, or what exactly, when we get to the end of this, what are we?
well, so at the next meeting, it'll just be more generalized
Right.
topics. That when we draft the ordinance, and give it to the council for review, that's going to be our specifics. We want this to be changed to this. and
Gotcha, okay, that'll have the meat and
Very,
potatoes.
yep, specific.
Okay, as long as there's not going to be a time,
I would say you'll have it by the weekend, because you have to. It has to be on file with the county and the state. And it's a couple pager, like really not a
Okay.
substantial thing.
Okay, that's all I had.
That's all you have?
Yep.
All right.
If you had any questions.
Questions, comments, anything else from the board? Okay, that's it. I'll entertain a motion to close, please.
So moved.
Okay, Mr. Craig, all in favor?
Aye.
Stand closed. Thank you, everyone.
Yes. I figured you'd be catching me.
Some good comments.
Yeah.